Japan had over 23 million tourists in 2023, so it's a super popular spot. I myself visited last year and it was so fun. But when you go with a friend who verbally abuses you the whole time, yeah, that's just not worth it anymore. We hear a lot of fun stories about Japan travel, but now it's time to hear some Japan travel drama, so let's get into it. My friendship blew up on a trip to Japan. Finding out my friend of 5 years was an absolute asshole when taking her on her first trip to Japan 1 year after I moved back from there. What did she do? Wouldn't add to the itinerary at all, but complained every single day when we got there. I took her to popular stations in Tokyo since it was her first time and we had 7 days. But she wanted to go to the beaches and rise at 5 a.m. and stay out till 2 a.m. like she does in Mexico. She even compared everything to Mexico, even wanting to tip a restaurant owner in USD because I do it in Mexico. She wanted to tip everyone and argued the whole time when I told her don't do it, it's rude. When I got my Japanese friend to educate her on how to give proper thanks, she finds one person online who said it's not required but appreciated and wouldn't stop pressing me about how it's so good to tip. Okay, so I get that her friend wants to be polite in the way that she's used to, which is tipping like she's done in the US and Mexico, but she really needs to learn how to be open-minded a bit, and that appreciation for service workers in different countries just looks different, bitch. Even if she doesn't get it, it's not her culture, okay? So I do agree that she needs to concede here and learn the saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, girl, and will not have any problems, okay? Continuing on. She would ask me how my legs were doing and I'd answer honestly like, yeah, they hurt. And she later mocked and berated me, saying it made her feel bad when I was complaining about my legs. But she can complain about the beaches? Okay. Anyways, I never said they hurt out of my own accord, nor did I stop what we were doing or ask for breaks. If she asked, I said yeah, but she'd rather I'd lie. I asked if she was thirsty while we waited for open hours and she said no, so I went to find me a coffee shop to grab one real quick. She goes, I don't even want to go there, you should have taken me to a real cafe. Girl, I'm just grabbing me a drink since you said no. She also doesn't believe in itineraries, yet hated everywhere I took her, so she got her friend back home to look up places for her. She had 6 months to look up anything to add, but she doesn't believe in itineraries. Girl, then why is she making her friend back home search up an itinerary for her? Make it make sense, okay? She got mad I didn't order for her when she didn't ask me to help. She said, if I were in Mexico, I would have ordered for you. All she said was that she was thinking about getting a bun today. She didn't even end up ordering it herself because she didn't want to point to it and ask the cashier. I was standing 10 steps away from her and there was no one in line when we were the only ones in the store. Not sure why she didn't even attempt to order a bun or ask me to help her. She started saying she should have gone on this trip with friend A or friend B to my face. She said she didn't like touristy areas, aka Shibuya, Asakusa, Harajuku, and wanted to go to rural areas while she doesn't even speak Japanese and was relying on me to quite literally hold her hand for everything. She's older than me, but we're both in our late 20s now. Okay, hold up. So first she wanted the beach. Then she didn't want to be in any of the touristy areas. Then she wants to go to the countryside where they mostly don't even speak English and she doesn't know how to speak Japanese at all. What's next, guys? Okay, does she want to go where people don't speak Japanese? Can she be so for real with me right now? Oh my goodness. Honestly, the tea though. She said she was going to leave the trip early if we spent a day with my sister at her Japanese friend's house. She wouldn't eat sushi because they have worms in them. Wouldn't go to karaoke because they were listening. Girl, who's listening? Said I made her cry, which she's only ever done at her dad's funeral. Wow. Called dried squid a gag gift she can get her family. Accused me of cutting her luggage and wouldn't take out yen from the ATM, so I did and she paid me back. Tried to tell me data works fine compared to our pocket Wi-Fi and that we can just leave the Wi-Fi at the hotel when I asked her to hold it for us. I lived in Japan and will not go anywhere without a pocket Wi-Fi. Girl, this list is way too long. I would have just outed after like a day or two, not gonna lie. This isn't even half of it. A whole 7-day nightmare. For the first time in my life, I actually slept through an entire 9-hour plane ride on the way back. Here are some additions. I totally forgot the more effed up things like asking, do you have an eating disorder? Or telling me she was going to smack my hand because I had it near my nose as I was choking on so much secondhand smoke my throat was getting raspy. And trying to convince me it was my fault that I was getting inappropriate stuff happening to me. Example, man chased me down the streets of Ikebukuro wanting to go to a hotel, but it's my fault because I was standing alone at the station. Also, anyone want to guess the profession she's pursuing? Honestly, I wouldn't even call her a bad travel partner at this point, but I honestly think she's just a bad friend, point blank, period. I feel like it is so risky to do a one-on-one travel with a friend to a faraway land if you just haven't traveled with them before or even seen them handle stressful situations in the past. In these situations, it could really go really bad or really good. But personally, that's not a risk that I would be willing to take. OP decided to take that risk for themselves, and it already happened, but at this point, it's a lesson learned to avoid traveling with that friend at all costs, okay? But let's go through some relevant comments. OP needs to get new friends, and how is the friend? OP says, I told her off a day after we landed and blocked her everywhere. She's 28, I'm 26. OP on ending the friendship after the trip. OP says, something about trips and friendships. This girl you would never guess because if you met her, she's a mama bear. Polite, well-mannered, fiercely independent and caring. I doubt people in real life would believe this is her. Once she was out of her element, she turned into the literal spawn of Satan. I wanted to leave her so bad, but I couldn't bring myself to because it's a very foreign country to her. Once she threatened to leave the trip early though, I literally started looking at flights for her and showed her the options, lol. That pissed her off even more because I was on my phone all throughout dinner. OP gives an example of her friend's reaction when going to a place for breakfast. No, literally. I left a bunch of stuff out because it's a lot, but our compromise to visiting my friend's house was I would go alone for a couple of hours while she waited at the hotel. Before I left, I convinced her to try going to the Konbini, which was next door to our hotel, alone to get breakfast, and she did. She came back and said she would never do that again. Wanna know why? Some other foreigner saw her and was trying to chat with her. I don't know if he was real or not, but she was like, yeah, see? Nope, I'm not doing that again. She's Mexican, which is why she kept bringing it up and telling me she was going to force me to go to Mexico so I can see how hard it is to order stuff or whatever. She also said she wouldn't go to my friend's house because how would you feel if I took you to Mexico and wanted to visit my brother-in-law? But honestly, I could have used that situation and thrown her misogyny right back at her face. Oh, a man talked to you? You must have looked approachable or it's what you're wearing. Everything she said to me, lol. She thought I was crazy to suggest this and that I was wasting her hard-earned money to sit around and hang out, and said that when people want to hang out it means all day, and everyone around her knows that hang out means all day. Also said that later means later today, which was a whole different thing, but I digress. But instead of asking me how long it would be, she flips her bananas and tells me she should have gone on this trip with friend A if I wanted to see friends. This is what made her cry. Girl, hanging out does not always mean all day, okay? For me, hanging out is a couple of hours, but I'm low-key a cave goblin and like my rest. So for me, if you say hang out, it's like a couple of hours in the afternoon, okay? But not the whole day, so I don't know why she's making this up. So here's the update. So I got a lot more responses and questions than I thought I would get on my last post. I figured I would share more about it for those who are interested. I also wanted to thank everyone who told me their own story of disaster trips. Some felt really relatable. Also, big thank you to those who asked me for Tokyo recommendations and those who said that they would have been glad to have me as a guide. That made me really happy. I actually had 2 friendships that ended over that trip, and overall, I felt really taken advantage of and underappreciated. Thank you all for helping sort some of those feelings by sharing your thoughts. Of course, this was a huge lesson learned, and I'll do my best to move forward with more caution and maturity. A little more context to what I went through. Got mad I told her no, I don't need her to hold my bag. Got mad I told her I didn't want to walk 1 hour to our destination because she chose the route with 1 train and a 40-minute walk. I chose one with 3 transfers and a 10-minute walk. I said I put my compressions in my check-in by accident and she replies, well, I'm smart and packed mine in my backpack. Told me she couldn't help with adding to the itinerary or join study sessions because she had family issues she didn't want to tell me about and didn't understand how that doesn't give her a pass to complain the whole time. She would agree to leave an area but then make snarky comments about how she liked the previous area more. She also told me sarcastically, I'm always right when I tried to tell her she was reading a Japanese person's response wrong. As if I didn't know the concept of tatame, sorry if I butchered that, and hone, lol. Honestly, it sounds like OP's friend has a lot of her own issues to work out, and maybe her issues at home are definitely spilling out during this trip. Is it a good excuse for how she treated OP? No, but it does offer a feasible explanation as to why she kind of went off the rails a little bit. I also think she needs to work on her communication skills because if she communicated in a more respectful way and was more willing to communicate what she liked rather than what she disliked and just complained the whole time, I feel like it would have just been a tad bit more bearable. But that's just me. Continuing on. She also blew up at me for being on my phone at dinner. I was navigating the whole time and we shared a hotel and bed. The only time I got to check in with my family is when we sat down to eat. She kept saying her family, who was tracking her, was asking why we're at a laundromat or why we're at a mall and not outside. She would compare me to friend A like, oh, she would have understood my joke. Girl, then why would you go with OP? I feel like the friend knew OP has been in Japan before and wanted to treat OP like a free tour guide, and that was the only reason OP was picked over friend A. Not a fact, but it's definitely a hunch on my end. She used a problem I was having with another friend against me, saying she understands why my friend did what she did. She yapped about how she hates Selena Gomez for writing a song about her ex, and when I told her nearly every singer-songwriter does, she told me to list names, and so I listed people and she said no, but name male singers though. She heard my favorite group XG play in Shibuya, and when I got excited she goes ew, only because they're a girl group. She acted like me making an itinerary meant that we couldn't walk into random shops along the way. Anytime we went somewhere spontaneously or didn't make a reservation, she would be like, see, this is how I travel. I just go with the flow because I do better under pressure. I think OP means without pressure. Anyways, so some people had mentioned how I didn't see any of this behavior prior to going on the trip. And I'll be honest and say there were red flags in our relationship which I saw, and I actually did distance myself from her. But after I moved to Japan and came back, I was in this weird position and really wanted to reconnect with my old friends and establish a support system again. So I decided to start fresh with her, which was obviously a mistake, and I got what I deserved. She started changing during the pandemic, in which her and friend A got really close as we were barely talking at the time. I talked to a mutual friend of ours recently and we both suspect that friend A had a part in fueling her toxic behavior. We always knew her as a sort of mama bear that took care of everyone and is super well-mannered and self-righteous. Everyone in real life likes her and looks up to her, but as one commenter pointed out, these good qualities are actually a disguise. She needs to be in control, and once she was out of her element and not in control, she completely lost her cool and was actually very verbally abusive. Which brings me to the next answer to everyone's question. She is pursuing to be a detective or police officer. It's more fitting rather than ironic. She appears disciplined, morally superior and dominant, but she's simply judgmental and controlling, and it's scary to think that someone like her will have more power and influence. The next thing I want to address is people asking why did she even want to go to Japan? I kind of think it's simple. I invited her and said I know of good places and can take us around. I think a lot of people in my life want me to take them to Japan because it's easier to go with someone who knows how to travel there. She wasn't someone who ever dreamed of going to Japan, but the opportunity came up and she took it. She's more of a Koreaboo to be honest, but nevertheless she was excited to go. She even started texting friend A on our trip saying they were gonna make it up to her and go to Kyoto next year and that I could join, LOL. Even though she told me to my face, no offense, but I'm never traveling with you again. The last thing people are asking is what I said to her when I ended it. So when we got back to the States, basically I started blocking her on everything. I argued with her for 7 days and everything that came out of her mouth was a complaint or insult, so I had zero energy to go back and forth. I already know that nothing will change her mind or open her eyes. She texted me asking why she couldn't find my username anymore, and I said this: girl, no way are we friends anymore after the way you behaved all throughout the trip. Never in my life have I heard a grown adult complain that much and not know how to communicate without an attitude, gaslighting, and being condescending. You are ethnocentric, extremely judgmental, and ableist. You say a lot of racist microaggressions and misogynistic things. And the fact that people can't even be honest with you or that you can't be honest with others is wild. You'd rather not hear the truth because honesty makes you feel bad. The entire time you talked about how you normally do things with your friends and family, and all of it told me that you're not very adaptable. But yeah, there was way too many unpleasant behaviors and things said that showed your true colors, and I don't want any further involvement. Then I blocked her, but I got a new phone and saw she read it, so that's that. I'm not hurt, but I'm really bummed about my trip to Japan being ruined. Ooh, that was a lot. And honestly, that sounds like a horrible experience, so I do feel bad for OP on that end. Yeah, it's always gonna be a huge risk traveling with friends because big trips like that could either make or break a friendship. OP was able to come to their own conclusion here and ended up divorcing the friendship, which I understand because that sounded like a tough 7 days, and it just seemed like they could not come to a single middle ground the whole trip. This is why I mostly just travel with family and my husband, because I get to avoid situations just like this. If you have a friend that's already giving you red flags prior to even traveling together, I just feel like that's a big indication that it's too much of a risk to travel with them. So keep that in mind, everyone, when you go on your next trip so you can keep your peace.